Blobs of doom turning into filament coming out of places that it shouldn't, stringing not always being wet filament, and really odd extrusion issues that follow way more than just the nozzle. All this and more, PrintFixFriday, episode 83. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to PrintFixFriday. If you're new here and you like this kind of thing, make sure to leave a like and get subscribed. We've got some awesome failures for you today, but what I'm most excited about is to tell you all about our sponsor, Diamondback Nozzles. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we have our first channel sponsor, Diamondback Nozzles, who has chosen to sponsor a couple of PrintFixFriday videos with nozzles made of polycrystalline diamond, literally the strongest material that we know, and the strongest material that is available in nozzles. You can buy one of these and never have to replace again. Carrying a factory warranty, these things are pretty much the last nozzle you will ever need. And unlike those hardened steel and tungsten carbide nozzles you might be used to, you don't put the temperature up, you bring it down because of how thermally conductive diamond is. And being as crazy abrasion resistant as it is, you don't have to worry about using those acupuncture needles to clean out any clogs, should you ever get any. And of course, because it's a ground surface for the tip of the nozzle, you basically get ironed prints without any extra effort. We've been using Diamondback nozzles on a few of our printers for a while now, and we'll be converting every one of our FDM printers over to running Diamondbacks because, well, they just work. And if you ever are considering running abrasives at all, get yourself a Diamondback, link in that description down below, code as well. So make sure you take a look at that coupon code to save yourself a couple of bucks when you go and get yourself a Diamondback. And now available on Amazon Canada. So click those links in that description. Support the companies that support us. Thank you, Diamondback, for supporting this channel and for supporting our 3D printers because I've beaten the hell out of some of those nozzles that we have, and ooh, do they take a licking and keep on ticking. Thanks again to Diamondback for sponsoring this video. Let's get into fixing some fails where, yeah, Diamond actually would have helped this one. Let's talk about it. First up, we got a fail from one of our Discord members. In fact, most of the fails today are from our Patreon Discord. Don't forget, if you want to kick a couple of bucks, links in that description down below. This one is from Zerno with his brand new SV06 Plus, which, yes, I have an SV06 Plus. We will be doing a video on it with a live unboxing. Get subscribed if that's your kind of thing that you like to see. But he has had the unfortunate fun of a blob of doom. For those that don't know, the Sovol SV06 and the SV06 Plus are what is being coined in the Discord as the poverty Prusa, because honestly, they're so damn good. And the SV06 Plus is a not volcano added onto basically a CR10 sized Prusa MK3. These machines are amazing for the price. This, however, not great. We've got a pretty bad blob of doom here, and unfortunately, during the work that Zerno was doing to get this blob off, he actually unplugged the connectors, and he said it's a lot easier to take the entire tool head off. Being the fact that it has a daughter board and a ribbon cable, just unplug the ribbon cable, take the whole thing, and use it somewhere else. So he took it off. We can obviously see the damage here. Tons of PLA wrapped around this. And traditionally, I would tell people just to leave it on the printer, heat up the printer. 230C, 240C for PLA, so it can slowly just melt that blob off, and use side cutters where appropriate. But because he'd already unplugged everything, he decided there was a better way to do this kind of thing. You can actually see the planetary gearbox as well for the SV06 Plus. He went with the ye old soldering iron with some wood burning tips on it, and it actually did okay. He was able to get most of it off with very minimal damage to the printer. As we can see, it is covered in goo. When you get to this point, plug everything back in, reheat it, and then we like to use either an X-Acto knife or just some metal clay working tools to just scrape off that extra hot plastic because yeah, this will end up in your prints and it gets really nasty. Got most of it off, had a little bit left, and you can see it's actually looking pretty clean. Everything's looking okay, but we had a problem. I'm gonna go ahead and pause it here because this one caught me off guard. Anybody notice the problem? His dingus end's got a little extra hole, and if your dingus end happens to have an extra hole, go to the doctor or something. That's a fun one, but had he had a diamond nozzle, this actually wouldn't have happened because that whole area is diamond. Now, it is a diamond slug they put into it, but that whole area is diamond, so you wouldn't have an availability for it to pass through. But that is a tough break because that means that nozzle, absolute toast. But the nice thing is, this not Kano is M6 threaded, can take a volcano block as well as a volcano nozzle, so he can just go get himself a Diamondback volcano, stick that bad girl on there, and never deal with this again. But this is why we tell you to be careful with flush cutters, because Zerno stabbed his nozzle deep enough to actually puncture it, which does make me question how strong those nozzles are, because that should not happen, like, at all. But hey, all's well that ends well. They come with a spare nozzle, just replace it and move on. Do note, if you do go and change over to a volcano block as well as a volcano nozzle on your SV06 Plus, you will need to put on a new fan shroud. So make sure you do that. We'll link to the fan shroud in the description down below, and we'll be looking at making different ones ourselves. A buddy of ours and Patreon member, Zombie Hedgehog, we'll link to his channel as well, recently did a Benchy in TPU on his SV06 Plus with a pair of 5015 blowers on it, running at crazy speeds. These printers are pretty darn cool for what they are, so stay tuned. We're going to have the SV06 Plus unboxing and assembly here in a couple of weeks, likely after Rocky Mountain Rep Rap, but we'll see. We've got a bunch of printers coming in that I got to do live streams for, so definitely sometime in the near future, soon TM. Next up, a failure from DK Shadows, one of our Patreon members who's been dealing with a little bit of extra stringing here. We got some settings and the temps were a little high. 230C, although it is a 0.6 nozzle, 0.3 profile, using an SV06 from Sovol. This is pretty bad, and I want you guys to put your comments down below of what you think the problem is. We had people thinking that it was wet filament. We had people saying things about temperature. I'd love to know what you guys think, because I called it, and it was pretty cool. There is a huge importance of getting the settings, because the print settings show you so many things that you wouldn't necessarily see otherwise. In this particular case, when we got the settings, we can see avoid printed parts when traveling, as well as combing mode. Combing mode in Cura can be a couple of different things, depending on the age of Cura, I believe, but avoid printed parts when traveling is the big problem. What's happening is the printer's basically following just on the outside the exterior perimeter of it as it's traveling. Instead of Z-hopping, moving, and then coming back down, it's moving all the way around. And as it's doing that, even though 1mm retraction is pretty high for an SV06, it's leaving little bits and bobs of filament, because 1mm is nothing. I'm sorry, gentlemen, it's not that big. What that means is you will slowly just have filament as it's getting hot and expanding kind of get its way out of the nozzle as you're moving, causing these strings. I said, hey, can you send me the settings? 230 is a little hot, but when you're running 0.6 nozzles and you're running 0.3mm layer height, you do have to turn up the temp if you are going to run pretty fast. Now, I don't see anything regarding speed on here, and that's okay. I'm not too worried about the speed. I'm more worried about the other settings. This is the importance of making sure that when you are asking for help, that you provide the print settings, because we could have gone down this rabbit hole of temperature all day, and other than going like way down to like 180, 185, or even 190, I don't think this problem would have gotten any better until we got rid of the avoid parts when traveling. Now, there is a 0.6 Z-hop. I prefer more. I prefer at least triple my layer height. Now, you might say, Grant, that's an excessive amount of Z-hop, and you're right. It is. But I'd rather have a lot of extra Z-hop and know I'm never going to contact my part than really risk it and end up slamming into my part, either knocking it off the build plate, skipping steps, and just all around causing havoc for the print. The SV06 Plus is not a smart printer in that it can't detect skip steps. So if it does have something like that, it's just going to keep printing without knowing any better. That's something to be aware of. Now, this is the Sovol Cura. I'm not a huge fan of it. And in fact, we've built a tuned Prusa Slicer profile, which is available for our Patreon members, as well as YouTube channel members and PayPal. So if you guys do want to get that profile, don't want to go through any of that extra work, you can click the links in that description, sign up for a couple of bucks a month and get that profile. We also did an entire video on getting a profile set up in Prusa Slicer. We'll card to it so you can take a look as well. But after we were still experiencing some issues with stringing. I believe that has more to do with the 230C than anything else. As we can see, the rest of the part looks pretty clean. It is a 0.3 millimeter with a 0.6 millimeter nozzle. You're not going to get beautifully clean prints. And honestly, with how bright and shiny the filament is, it tells me it is being overheated, as well as maybe we've got some loose belts. I can see some wiggling here, but I don't know if that is due to the nozzle printing out some thick layer lines or what it might be. Some further inspection might be needed, but DK Shadow was much happier with this, and it cut 20 minutes off of the print time of this part, which, considering how small it is pretty significant. If you are concerned about having extra strings, make sure you turn off avoid printed parts when traveling. It is something to be aware of. I did tell him turn off combing because it is a common issue as well, but it depends. It depends on how it's combing and where it's combing. I'm not too familiar with Cura, so if you are, you know how combing in Cura works, leave a comment and let me know. I really do gotta up my game in Cura. Next up, a Voron failure. This is from Patreon member Cole, who is having some problems. We've got some print settings here, and for a Voron, this is actually pretty slow. You'd really want to run a Voron much faster than this. It is a Voron 2.4 Revo Micro Clockwork 2, which is a direct drive, and we're running either a 0.4 or a 0.6 nozzle on that Revo. 220 to 230 on the nozzle, 60 on the bed, HTPLA. The only thing he's really messed with is he redid the E steps for sanity and ran flow and pressure advance tests, since he hadn't done those for a while either. Pressure advance of 0.043, and he has a slicer set to cap at speeds of 10 cubic millimeters per second flow rate, which you can go higher with the Revo. You really want to limit it to about 12 though, unless you do want to kick the temperature up, which will of course give you more opportunity. And before any of you start to say, oh, well, my XYZ whatever can go faster. Funny, XYZ was a printer. Most stock printers limit between 10 and 15 cubic millimeters per second. And yes, including the Bamboo. The Bamboo X1 Carbon's generic PLA profile is limited to 12 cubic millimeters per second. You actually get limited on speed because of volumetric flow than you do before actually hitting any speed flow rate issues. And it was apparently printing just fine last week, and he printed out 40 of these long test pieces without any issue. The only thing that he's done since then was get obsidians, so he's running obsidians, nice, and lower the pressure advance from 0.055 to 0.043 and slightly up the E steps as they were off. So, okay, we've got some issues here, and we're looking at it likely being mechanical. We've got some skip steps here, and just overall, it looks like it's under extruding, but it's not consistent. Normally when we see this, we would say, oh, this is a clogged nozzle. But obsidians are pretty difficult to clog in my experience, and this is not typical, where it's fine, there's nothing, and then it goes back to being fine again. And even then, it still appears to be somewhat under-extruded. I went with, you're probably dealing with some sort of mechanical issue. Now, I was busy most of the day, so the entire Discord was going through and helping him. Thank you all. This is what I love about this. But I said, can someone bring me up to speed on what has been tried and what we are dealing with? Looks like first layer is too close. So initial look for me was, looks like first layer was too close. I was totally wrong, to be clear. But I had seen this image and said, oh, well, that looks like it's too close. I was on my phone, just trying to figure out what was going on. The overall thing was inconsistent under extrusion that remains different between filaments and different nozzles. He's tried printing with a 0.6 obsidian, 0.6 brass, 0.4 obsidian, 0.4 brass, and it has been the same. Some parts of the print go great, others varies from slight under extrusion to massive over extrusion. Just tested with different good known filament and no dice. Confirmed it wasn't slicer settings, somehow running old known good files even on brass that they were previously printed on, and still got this weird issue. I done extruder maintenance, then printed 40 things, then started testing the obsidians, and now can't get it to print a consistently extruded part to save my life. First layer might be a tad too close, but it should be about the same closeness as it's been for the last 2 months, because I have it auto set based on the distance from the nozzle to the bed probe every print. So I asked, are the extruder gears clean? They were last Saturday when I did maintenance on them, and I didn't see anything on them currently. I said, and if so, are they tight? Can they pull filament with you applying pressure? We got a GIF. Ladies and gentlemen, we got them. If you are ever going through issues of random under extrusion and it follows nothing. Old G code still has it, new G code has it, different nozzle sizes have it. If it is consistent across all these things and you have known good G code that has been tested, put some pressure on the filament at the entrance to the extruder. If you can hold the filament back with very minimal pressure, you're not gripping the filament tight enough. Likely when Cole was doing maintenance on his Voron, when he went to tighten everything back up, the gears weren't meshing all that correctly, and he wasn't applying enough extruder pressure on the filament itself. Now, I don't know too much about the clockwork extruder, so I don't even know how it works. But these are consistent things to be looking out for. If it isn't a software thing, it's not a nozzle thing, it's not a hot end thing, we start running out of options. The extruder is the next best thing. We've removed software by trying previously known good G code. We've removed the fact, unless every nozzle is clogged that he's tried, it's not a clogged nozzle. So the last thing that we have to do is check the actual hardware. And in this case, yeah, it's extruder pressure. We've got a working theory. The Clockwork 2 extruder has what the community calls a Thingamajig screw, which is a countersunk screw by the idler tension assembly to cause it to bottom out and hit a maximum pressure. I think the screw walked itself out a little bit over the course of printing because I normally use that screw to generally adjust and then use the actual tensioner screw for finer adjustment, but keep the normal tension screw fairly tight. I think when I did the extruder maintenance, I loosened the normal tensioning screw to confirm alignments and meshing and such, but never retightened it, thus giving the Thingamajig screw room to work itself out just enough to prevent proper pressure. That sounds like a great thought process to me. I certainly can't argue with it. This is the value of really taking a look at going through. Cole did a great job, as did quite a few of the members of our Discord, really systematically going through and figuring out what the problem was. But hey, sometimes you got to bring in the ringer, and I must have been in meetings all day. It's been a couple of really crazy days. I just got back from Austin, Texas a couple of days ago, scanning the US women's soccer team, which was a lot of fun. Video on that coming soon. It didn't go as planned, but video coming soon. It is just one of those cases where Cole was chasing a dragon of pressure advance, steps per millimeter, and all these other problems, when we needed to look at what was everything that you did up to and including when the problem has occurred. The Obsidian nozzles from E3D. Yes, Obsidians are now shipping, by the way. Go get your Obsidians from your favorite distributors. We know Repcord's got them. We know Printed Solid's got them. We'll link to both of those in the description. Of course, you can buy them directly from E3D if you do so feel inclined. But you know, eventually, you just have to sit back and say, what am I missing? Sometimes it's easier than you think. This one, it's an honest to goodness mistake. It happens the best of us. I have certainly struggled with it on the Prussias. And if you are ever curious, just hold a little bit of pressure. I want to be able to hold enough pressure that the stepper motor will start to skip. I do not want it grinding my filament. I want it to start skipping. If it skips, we've got enough pressure. That's what I like about it. And that is skipping when applying pressure and extra friction from my fingers on the filament. If it's just skipping normally, that's a whole different problem that we have to dig into. Future prints ended up looking good, and we can see further images look beautiful. That is a great looking print. That's a really nice color too. The print looks great. So it was just a little bit of extruder pressure, no big deal at all. I've been trying to calibrate this thing for the entire week. For the love of God, somebody help me. We've got a really interesting looking Benchy here. And you know, I didn't know what was going on. And then I read the comments. Looks like you've turned on spiral vase mode for your Benchy. That was the problem. And you won't see any infill with vase mode because it is a consistent single extrusion. Now, bonus points, honestly, damn good bridging. Pretty good bridging over here. I mean, honestly, for all things considered, Benchy looks pretty damn good. This is just one of those funny little failures that's happened. And I've never seen this one before. But we definitely have some other issues going on. I'm not entirely certain what causes this, other than being way too close on your first layer. And then the second layer only making things worse. That is spiral vase mode, ladies and gentlemen. A really odd issue, but you know, hey, happens to the best of us. And this one, I would have initially said that something else was wrong. So yeah, Vase mode. Did any of you guess vase mode? Did somebody have Benchy printed in vase mode on their bingo card? Let me know. Last but not least, an interesting failure from the Warhammer 40k Facebook group. We've got a resin print here that the entire center looks like it's got a big damn suction cup on it. Thank you to Devoid Colossus from our Discord for posting this. This is a really interesting resin fail, and for those of you that are dealing with this issue with resin fails, this is what happens when you don't have enough lift height. On these bigger resin printers, you really need to make sure that you have enough lift height to get the print out of the vat, or at least off of your FEP. Your FEP is going to have some flexibility to it. If you don't have enough lift height, you're not going to be able to peel your parts off. And remember, resin is toxic, so even though this does look to be pretty clean, wear some damn gloves. If they're cheap now, just please wear some gloves. But this is because as you're pulling out, the center of that FEP is the loosest, because it is the farthest from any tension objects, and it has the highest ability to just stretch rather than rip away. Resin printing is actually pretty hardcore in that you're just tearing your prints off of this FEP sheet. It's a lot of work. And if you don't have enough lift height, it doesn't fully peel. And that's why it ends up looking like this really odd suction cup bubble thing. But we know it's not a suction cup because there's lines here for the air to get out of, and it's just really consistent. Very, very interesting. It might be worthwhile to look at either tightening or changing the FEP, because if it has stretch like this, it's not really useful anymore. But yeah, guys, let me know in those comments below, did you get some of these fails right? I really liked going into depth of some of these a little bit more. Let me know your thoughts on that as well. I want to do more of these in-depth looks at some of these print failures and how we fix them. If you like that kind of thing, I'd love to know your opinions down below. That's all I got for you guys today. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. And a massive thank you goes out to Diamondback, as well as all of our Patreon, YouTube channel member, and PayPal supporters, whose name's listed right next to me at the $5 tier and higher. Remember, if you want to get some awesome Diamondback nozzles, links are in that description down below. Use the code down there as well to get a couple of bucks off your order. Right below me is the entire PrintFix Friday series, where you can see how we look at print failures and fixing them. And right next to that will be our video on open versus closed source. I'd love to know your opinions on it. It's an interesting one. I'll see you guys down in those comments and in the next one. Take care.